Deliberate practice is going to make you feel more comfortable and confident on camera, and that's going to come off to your viewer and your audience, no matter who's watching your videos, so that they feel invited and welcome and want to watch more of your content.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you're watching from. My name is Matt Pierce, host of the Visual Lounge, and today we're going to be talking about something I think a lot of you have had to come face to face with, the reality of being on camera. It's not always easy, it's not always comfortable, but there are things you can do to get better, and our guest today is going to help us out. So let's go ahead and introduce her. Meredith Marsh specializes in helping online business owners shine on camera and become the go-to expert in their niches. With over 2 decades of experience online, Meredith has mastered the art of teaching video creation from recording to editing. She's a creative mind behind the YouTubical concept and the inventor of the Set It and Forget It YouTube funnel, empowering entrepreneurs to leverage video for automated sales. As the founder of YouTube Brand Academy and creator of courses like 30 Days to a Thriving YouTube Channel, Meredith guides her students to video marketing success with enthusiasm and authenticity. When she's not helping others look good, sound good, and feel good on camera, Meredith enjoys life in upstate New York with her husband and their 2 teenage daughters. With that said, please help me welcome Meredith Marsh to the Visual Lounge.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me.
Meredith, thank you so much for being here. I always love when someone connects me with great people who have great ideas and thoughts, and feel very privileged to be able to have you here on the show today.
I'm so excited to be here.
What's one tip? If we just have to start with like a tip about using video for the business and workplace, what's one thing you would recommend to this audience about like that they could just do to get, incrementally better in using video?
Well, I think most people would say practice, but I think this is going to sound weird, but practice talking to yourself off camera, like throughout the day or in the car by yourself. When you practice talking about the topics that you would talk about on camera out loud, I think it really just sort of primes your brain to feel normal and natural talking out loud to yourself and then to a camera.
I love that because I've heard a lot of tips, right? And that's one that is very practical. And yeah, it makes sense because I think it was, I don't know if you knew, I think it was either Tim Schmoyer or maybe it was another YouTube creator. Andrew Can. He said that he's like, it's not natural to talk to a camera. There's nothing natural about this, but making it feel a little bit more natural. I
think you can kind of trick your brain into thinking, yeah, this is a totally normal thing that we're doing here.
I guess just be mindful of where you're doing it. If you're walking down the street talking to yourself, then it's going to look a little strange. So Meredith, I want to talk about getting better on camera. You've got a lot of experience. Obviously, you have a presence about you. You've got your setup. You looks good. First of all, why do you think people struggle with this? Like, why we talked about it's not natural. Is there anything? Why is it so hard to do this well?
There's a lot of moving parts to creating videos. Like, even if you don't want to have a fancy camera and lights and like a fancy microphone and stuff, there's still a lot of moving parts to like what software am I using? How am I recording? How to do it on my phone? And I think a lot of people struggle with the fact that what we see when we're watching other people on camera in a video, what we see is edited, usually for the most part. And people who can pull off like a live stream or something that's unedited but still intriguing to watch, I think have some natural talent and probably some experience under their belt. But what you see, like if you look at my channel, if you look at your channel, it's edited. And so I think there's like this sense when you're trying to make videos that I have to make it perfect. It has to sound cohesive and coherent coming out of my mouth because that's what you see, but you don't realize that like I restart my sentences 17 times in every video that I have. It just gets edited out and I edit it so that it looks coherent and cohesive. And so it's this case of, sometimes people say like, don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. And I think that happens a lot with video where you see what other people are doing and you think, oh, my video has to be at that level. And you don't realize that they edited their video to look like it's at that level.
Yeah, I love that advice to don't compare your beginning to the middle, just because, yeah, everyone's on a journey. You've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for a while, and it's not the same when you start, right? So
Right.
as you think about this process, so let's say someone comes to you and says, Meredith, I really want to do more on camera. I want to be on camera more, right? And they're seeing that middle and they're saying, like, I know I'm not going to be there at day one, but what's that first starting point? What's the first thing you would recommend to someone to do to help them to start to move towards their own middle?
That's a great question. I what worked for me when I first started, I was not an on-camera person. Like I never wanted to be on camera. I just essentially emulated what I saw other people doing, and I thought, well, I'll just emulate what they're doing. And I fell into the trap of, well, it has to be perfect and the words have to come out of my mouth perfectly every time. And then I learned, oh, I can edit all that stuff out. And, and that sort of changed my workflow a little bit and helped me to relax when it was actually time to record. But I would just look at the people that I was watching on YouTube. How did they stand? How, like, were they locked eyes with the camera the whole time, or were they looking off, or were they reading from a script? And I guess, sort of like took mental notes on what I saw other people doing, people that I admired and trusted, and wanted to, I saw them at their middle and wanted to be at that level, and just kind of like emulated that, sort of pretended like if I knew what I was doing on camera, if I like what would I do if I knew? Like can you pretend to know what you're doing and just try it? And I was really surprised when I first started, when I would watch my videos back, that I did sort of feel like I was coming off as like still my authentic self, but this kind of like new level of an on camera version of my authentic self. So emulating other people helped me to pretend to know what I was doing enough to do it and see it and then feel comfortable with it moving forward.
Yeah, this might be a little bit obscure, but I'm thinking there's that Shakespeare quote, and I had to look to make sure I got it right. But where is it? What ere thou art, act well thy part, kind of thing, right? So if you want to be like these people, first act like it, right? I think that's great
Mm-hmm.
advice. Like, look at
Yeah.
what you like. If I want to be like Meredith, what does Meredith do? And just try to emulate those things as a start, and then I'm guessing you become kind of find who you are, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it gets easier over time, but I think there is also a component of like deliberately improving or deliberately getting, to where you do feel like you're speaking authentically, using your personality, and instead of just like, it's not really practice makes perfect, it's like deliberate practice makes perfect. I
mhm.
think there's a quote in there about that, probably not from Shakespeare, but there's a quote in like intentional deliberate practice and trying to improve over time. And then it sort of snowballs. Like the more comfortable you are, the more comfortable you become. And then the more comfortable you are, then the more comfortable you become. And I think that comfortableness comes off on camera. Like I've watched people's videos where they clearly are not comfortable. It's kind of like watching somebody speak on stage for the first time
Mm.
and they've never done it, and they have a great personality and they have great content, but they're not totally comfortable on stage. And so it sort of like oozes into the audience a little bit, it's like, oh man, they're making me feel uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable. And I think that can happen on camera, which is why that deliberate practice comes in. It's not just about improving, but it's like, when it looks better, you're going to feel better about creating it.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you a question because you've mentioned a couple of times about The reality is that you can edit. You can fix kind of the idea is you can fix problems, right? What you mentioned, 17, it takes 17 takes, which I get. I've definitely been there. It's one of the things about being on a podcast, though. I don't give myself a lot of allowances for editing because I'm lazy. But I want to talk about that because I think there's some skills there that are like it's one thing to say something 17 times, and then in editing, it can still feel choppy or it can feel hard to put together. And I've definitely experienced that. I know trying to piece two things together that maybe I didn't think through. So do you have any advice on how to, in that process of knowing like, I'm going to edit this, I can fix things, but are there things that you've done to make that easier? Because look, editing's hard. Everyone can do it. It's a skill that can be learned, but I feel like sometimes it's like, gosh, I don't want to spend 10 hours trying to figure out how to edit this thing to work when I could have, if I just would have said it right the first time.
Yeah. Um, what I My best advice for editing is to follow something I call the BFF method. And I mean, I like to think I'm people's video BFF, but BFF actually stands for basic, fine tune, and fancy. And so this is like the workflow that I use because sometimes, I record something and I just want to get it published. And there's a balance between, do I spend the 10 hours to really make this really polished and really good and really edited, or is it good enough to go out as it is? And so the BFF method is sort of like a filter to figure out just how much editing do I have to do here. So pretty much even if I don't make any mistakes, there's still a little bit of editing, like at the very beginning of a recording or the very end, or a lot of times there is the places where I start my sentence 17 times. So that just gets cut out. And as long as you can find those places, it's easy to just go in and make a cut, and then select and delete. Like in any editing program, it's pretty simple. And then, so basic is kind of doing those basic cuts. Fine tuning is where you might go into where you made those cuts and zoom way, way, way in so you can see the waveforms. And then just make sure there's no like weird, awkward dead space between one clip and the next clip, which this is a really, I think, common. I don't know that I would necessarily call it a mistake, but it's a common area that could be easily polished that I see in videos where there's just just enough empty dead frames where to the viewer it looks like you were just kind of staring at the camera for a moment before you were talking. And if you eliminate that dead space, your video can sort of appear like it hasn't even been edited because the cuts just kind of like one flows right into the other, without having like an obvious jarring cut. So the fine tuning phase is where I just sort of like clean things up, add any lower thirds like my name or background music if I'm adding background music. And then fancy is like transitions and like a bunch of B-roll and animations and text on the screen. And a lot of people get so hung up on those kinds of things at the beginning because I don't know, because it looks like, wow, this video is so polished. I've got text here and there and all these animations and transitions. And maybe that's what you see your favorite YouTuber doing. But those are the things that take so much time to figure out. Like you have to learn how to do it. Then you have to take the time to put it in and make decisions about where does it go. And a lot of people focus their time on that kind of like fancy stuff that doesn't really add to the value of the content of the video, and then just it takes extra time to create. So that's the BFF method: basic, fine tune, and fancy.
Yeah, I love that, and that's very practical. And I know we have a lot of internal conversations about as we're making our content. Like there's this push for a little bit more kind of more perfect, kind of higher quality content. But then, like when you look at social media in particular, it's like, well, gosh, does it need to be that perfect? Can we just put it out the door if it's going to TikTok or whatever? And so I love that gives that a structure and kind of consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So from a consideration of if I'm thinking about those people who are saying, Meredith, I hear you. I have a desire, but I'm not in a place where I want to be on camera. I don't even want to hear my voice. Like I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. And I know some of that's probably that's a personal thing, right? Like we got to work through our own kind of our own self-worth there. But for those people who are struggling, but they've got good ideas, they got good content. What advice do you give to them who are like, oh, just really caught up on it's not about the mechanics of recording. It's just I know what I look like. Let's be honest. If you're watching this on YouTube, I know what I look like, guys. Trust me. So what do you say to those individuals who are just in that position where maybe it's part of their job, and they're being asked to do it?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that often my like clients and students will tell me is I can talk to people on a Zoom call with my camera on, but when it's just me and a camera, I freeze. And so, I mean, the simple solution to that is so just record it like it's a Zoom call. You could even record it on Zoom. You know, these days we have ways of connecting a fancy camera, if you have one, to a Zoom, um, or even just use your iPhone. That can be connected to your Zoom too, so you're not just using like a grainy webcam. And just do it on Zoom. Then pretend you are on Zoom, or get a friend or colleague, you know, if this is like a work situation, get a coworker to ask you questions that you can then answer, that you can then edit together into a cohesive video. Because if that's where you feel the most authentic and the most comfortable on a Zoom call, having a conversation and delivering value that way, then you're already like there. You just need to record it and turn it into a video.
Yeah, I love that advice. One more question about being on camera, and then we can move into some kind of our other parts of the show. But I'm curious. One of the things, and I guess anyone that's listening to this show for a long time, and you might have already noticed, I am either all in on energy or like not. And I think one of the things is modulating the energy sometimes. And it can be draining, I think, to put yourself in a situation where you're recording, especially if you're doing it often, or maybe you're doing a lot of like takes, or you're doing a lot of different videos kind of in a batch production situation. What are some
Mm-hmm.
things that you do to help just kind of make sure that your energy is staying up, that you're staying kind of, because it is about being on, right? Like there's no doubt you have to be on for the camera. It is a, you don't, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's like, uh, how do you do that? What are things that you do to help you with that? Because it can be so just tiring and draining after, if you're not, if you haven't figured that part out.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. So, you know, people used to say about television that the camera adds 10 pounds or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but I hope it's not true for YouTube. But I like to say the camera like drains like half of your energy. So what when you're recording, you might feel like, oh, this is just my natural energy level. But then when you go and look at it when you're like editing, it's sort of like a little bit slow, a little bit sluggish, a little bit low energy, forgetting to smile, things like that. Because like when you're comfortable, you're not necessarily high energy smiling, like shining for the camera. So I think there's a little balance there between being comfortable, but also, like you said, being on and bringing the energy up a little bit. For me, batching videos is sort of like my Achilles heel as a content creator because I don't have energy to create multiple videos in a day. And several months ago, like about a year ago, I created a whole series on my channel called the Crush It on Camera series. And I made a goal to, I'm going to plan like thumbnails, script, titles, descriptions, record, and edit these 6 videos in 1 week. And the day that I recorded, I was like, well, this is never happening again. And it felt great to have them all done because I had 6 weeks of content all recorded. But when I was editing them, I could see by like the fourth video, fifth video, and then the sixth video, definitely. And if you go watch the series on my channel, the sixth video is like, hey, it's Meredith and blah, blah, blah. And there's no smile. My face is totally flat. And I didn't realize it when I was recording, or else I would have like gone to take a walk or take a break. Let's finish the rest of these tomorrow or something. But it wasn't until I was editing that I was like, oh, wow, these are like really low energy. So I think 3 videos for me is probably the max for one day. And so now that I know that, I can take breaks and plan to not do more than that in a day. But when I first started, I I thought that being comfortable on camera meant being like physically comfortable. So I recorded my first videos like sitting on my couch. And then when I went to watch them back and edit them, I was like, I look like I look like I don't even really want to be on camera because, well, I was brand new and I really didn't know what I was doing. But I then heard somebody say, and I think it was John Lee Dumas was talking about podcasting, and he said he records standing up. And that was just like audio only for him back in the day. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. He stands up all day to record. So I tried it for my next group of videos. Uh, and it was amazing how much more energy I had standing up. So I think there's something about, I love tricking the brain. I think you're sort of tricking your brain into thinking you're saying something important, because people who say important things in speeches and things, they're always standing. And so what you say is important. It matters. People want to hear it. And just the ability to kind of move around slightly, not a bunch, not walking around, but just the slight body movement, I think helps you to just naturally relax and be in the energy of, okay, I'm creating a video now. And so I don't have to stand up anymore I mean, I'm not standing up right now. I think I've just learned to take that energy and put it into my face and my body sitting down. And it's just been like a practice and experience thing. But I do have to consciously think about it sometimes to like, okay, we're recording a video. So make sure we smile, make sure we're engaging with the camera here. Because, like you pointed out earlier, it's not natural. It's really not natural to talk to a camera. So I think tricking the brain sort of helps it to be high energy so the viewer feels like they're engaging with you when they're watching your videos.
Yeah, so I love the idea of physicality changing, like, you know, like how you sit or how you're standing, doing those things. That's really great. I will share you. We had a guest on the podcast, and he talked about making. I think he was making like 200 videos for like a big course, right? And
Mm.
one of the things that he said that has stuck with me that I think is interesting about you're talking about your 6 videos. He said that he didn't record them in order. I was like, well,
Right.
right. So that way he's like, I knew he saved his intro and his exit videos for like the highest energy, like where he's feeling
Oh,
really
yeah.
good. And I thought, oh, I never thought of that. That's just brilliant, right? Like put them in different orders so that the energy, it can ebb and flow a little bit differently. But
That's a great idea, and actually, I've done that before with individual videos. Like, I'll record the beginning of the video, then record the meat of the video, then the end. And sometimes I will go back and say, you know what? Now that I'm in my energy, let's re-record this intro and see if maybe it's a little better than the first time I ran it through. And so when I'm editing, I'll just sort of compare and take the better take. But there was a time where I did that on purpose because, again, when I was editing, I would go, wow, this is like a really dry, low energy open here for the very first part of the video, which is probably not the greatest strategy. So I would deliberately not record an intro at all until I was done recording the rest. And that really helped. But it was again, it's like the deliberate practice. Since I had that deliberate improvement, intentional improvement, now I just know I can just sort of flip a switch and turn the energy on. But it took the deliberate improvement to get to that place where I was, then able to trick my brain.
Yeah, beauty of non-linear editing, right? You can record
Yes.
in any way you want and put it together.
Yes.
So, well, Meredith, this has been awesome. I've taken away a few ideas and tips, and I'm hoping our audience has too. But we're going to move into our speed round questions for those who are new to the show. Quick questions with quick answers, determined by the roll of a dice. So we're going to play a little stinger. Here we go. All right. So I'm such a nerd. I have a 12-sided die, Meredith. We're going to roll this, and we've got 12 potential questions. So the first one is question number 3. This is a good one. If you could give a piece of advice to your younger self, what would that advice be?
Oh boy, how young are we talking? Um, I would say people want to hear what you have to say, even if it doesn't seem that way. The people who do want to hear what you have to say will find you. That's what I would tell my younger self.
I love that. That is great advice because yeah, you've got a voice. Obviously, people want to listen to you. You've got a successful channel and platforms, and if you could have started maybe 5 years earlier, right? How much better would that even been?
Right?
Awesome. All right, let's move on to our next question here. Second roll of the die, as long as it's not a 3, we're just going to go right up. We're just numbering up right here. Number 4. What's your guilty pleasure song or movie that you secretly love? Well, it can't be too secret because you won't tell us that, but
Oh man. Secretly love.
yeah.
I love period films and shows. So, like, Downton Abbey is my comfort show, and I just need something to watch that's kind of like light and easy. And yeah, that's my go-to is Downton Abbey.
One more question here. Here we go. Roll the die. And we can't do 4 again unless you have another movie, but I doubt it. Uh, okay, question 1. Ooh, this one, people typically have a little bit, they struggle because it's a little harder question. If you could
No.
have dinner, okay, you're going to have dinner with anyone, historical or living, doesn't matter, who would it be and why?
Okay, I have been asked this question before on a podcast, and the answer I gave surprised the host. So I'm going to use the same answer. Hopefully, it doesn't have to be somebody like famous because I would have dinner with my great great grandparents because they had like a general store in this like super small town at the turn of the century, and they were really, my great great grandfather was into like gadgets and things. He had a camera way before cameras were mainstream. Like, I have pictures of my relatives from the 1800s. And I would just want to have a conversation about how cool it must have been to be able to just kind of play with these new gadgets and technology that were emerging, like cameras and cars and things like that. Because I'm a gadget girl, and I think I might have inherited that from that side of my family.
I love that answer because yeah, you think about the kind of the trajectory of just technology through the 1900s, right? Like it's crazy how far we've
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
So, well, what a cool legacy too, and to have it be family and
Right.
kind of see where did I come from? Who are these people? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. All right, well, Meredith, this has been a delight to talk with you. For those who might want to connect with you or learn more from you, where should they turn?
The best place would be my YouTube channel. If you just search my name on YouTube, you'll find it. I already mentioned my Crush It on Camera series there. It's 6 videos. I might have even added some more videos since then, to help you look good, sound good, and then feel good on camera. And I have a couple other videos there that are really great for starting a channel, growing your audience with your content if you're into, growing your YouTube channel. And then if you're a course creator or you have programs or you work with clients, I have a whole system on there with a video that explains how to set up your YouTube channel so that you can attract those like sales and your clients and customers with YouTube, once you're comfortable being on camera.
Fantastic. Well, Meredith, we like to end the show the same way. We always ask our guests to give us their final take. So, Meredith, what is your final take?
My final take is deliberate practice is going to make you feel more comfortable and confident on camera, and that's going to come off to your viewer and your audience, no matter who's watching your videos, so that they feel invited and welcome and want to watch more of your content.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me in the Visual Lounge.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, everybody, as we wrap up today's show, thanks to Meredith. What great advice. That deliberate practice is so important. And YouTube video creation, let me tell you, that people definitely have talent to do this, but you don't need the talent necessarily. You need practice. You need to build the skills, because you can do this. You can be successful. And that's what we're all about at the Visual Lounge. Figure out how you can get a little bit better at all the things that you're doing so you can be successful as a content creator, as a YouTuber, as a video maker, whatever it is, you're using images or video. But it takes that practice, and we hope you take a little time to level up every single day. Thanks, everybody.